"Buy me, cowboy, I will make sure you are satisfied," said the Apache woman on sale. The sun was beginning its slow climb above the jagged peaks of the Arizona desert. The air was dry, and the heat already started pressing down on the sand and rocks. In a small Apache village hidden among the red cliffs, life had always been a struggle, but it was a life the people knew and cherished. Children laughed as they ran along narrow dirt paths. Women tended small gardens and carried water from the nearby stream, and men worked the land or hunted for food. It was not an easy life, but it was their life, and it was filled with the rhythms and stories of generations. Among them was a young woman named Nayeli. Her hair, long and black, shone in the sunlight, and her dark eyes held a mixture of curiosity and courage. She was known in the village for her cleverness and skill with traditional crafts, as well as for her gentle heart. Nayeli was strong in spirit and body, and though she was quiet at times, there was a spark in her that made people take notice. She understood the ways of her people and the land around her better than most. One morning, the village awoke to a tension that was different from the usual routine. Distant sounds carried on the wind, and there was a sense of unease that made mothers call their children closer. Nayeli noticed the change immediately. Her instincts, honed through years of observing nature and the people around her, told her that something was wrong. She quietly moved through the village, noticing how other villagers exchanged worried glances and hurried to secure their homes. Soon, the source of the unease became clear. A group of strangers had appeared on the horizon. They were not the traders or travelers who sometimes passed by, bringing news or goods. These people moved with a purpose that was sharp and unsettling. The villagers gathered, whispering and trying to make sense of what they saw. Nayeli felt a cold knot of fear, but she also felt her heart beating with determination. She had been taught that courage did not mean absence of fear, it meant acting despite it. As the strangers approached, the villagers tried to hide and protect themselves. Children were pulled close, and elders were guided to safer spots. Nayeli stayed near her family, offering quiet words of comfort. But even as she tried to calm those around her, she could not ignore the realization that this was unlike anything her village had faced before. The strangers' eyes were hard, and they moved with confidence, as though they already believed the land belonged to them. Before long, the strangers reached the village. Their leader, a tall man with a wide-brimmed hat and sharp eyes, began speaking in a language unfamiliar to Nayeli. The villagers could not fully understand, but they sensed that the words carried commands and demands. Nayeli's mother held her hand tightly, and Nayeli could feel her mother's anxiety. She squeezed back, silently promising that she would do everything she could to protect those she loved. In the chaos, Nayeli realized that resistance was dangerous. The strangers were many and the villagers were few. Fighting them would only bring harm, so she made a decision. She would observe, learn, and find a way to survive. Her mind raced, thinking of every trick she had learned as a child, every story of courage and cunning her elders had told. She knew that survival often depended on patience and careful action. As the day wore on, Nayeli and several other villagers were led away by the strangers. They walked for hours under the scorching sun, their feet dragging through sand and rock. Nayeli noticed everything, the way the strangers carried themselves, the tools they held, the way they spoke to one another. She memorized every detail, knowing that knowledge could be a shield in times of danger. Despite the fear gnawing at her, Nayeli found moments of quiet strength. She recalled the stories her grandmother had told her about their ancestors, who had faced hardship and survived through wisdom and courage. She repeated these stories in her mind like a chant, and they gave her a sense of control in a situation where she had very little. She reminded herself that she was not helpless. Even in captivity, a mind that stayed alert and a heart that stayed determined could shape the future. At night, when the group stopped to rest, Nayeli looked up at the stars. The vast sky stretched endlessly above her, a reminder that the world was bigger than the walls of the village or the control of the strangers. She imagined the mountains of her homeland, the river she had played by as a child, and the faces of the people she loved. The memories fueled her courage. Even in the dark, she felt a small flame of hope. The strangers spoke among themselves, planning their next steps. Nayeli could not understand all the words, but she could sense their intentions through tone and gesture. She realized that they saw the villagers not as people but as objects, tools for their own purposes. The thought was frightening, but it also strengthened Nayeli's resolve. She would not let them break her spirit. She would learn, observe, and wait for the right moment to act. During the journey, Nayeli noticed small opportunities. When a stranger was distracted, she would shift her weight or adjust her position to make herself more comfortable, to preserve her energy for what might come next. She studied the landscape, looking for paths that could offer escape or signs that would allow her to anticipate the group's movements. Every small detail was recorded in her mind, like a secret map only she could read. By the second day, exhaustion began to weigh heavily on the group. The villagers were tired, hungry, and unsure of what awaited them. Nayeli felt their fear as if it were her own, but she also carried a sense of responsibility. Her strength did not come from ignoring the danger, but from facing it with careful thought. She spoke softly to those around her when they were near despair, offering encouragement, sharing what little knowledge she had of surviving in the harsh terrain. Though her body ached, Nayeli's mind stayed sharp. She noticed how the strangers reacted to sunlight, heat, and terrain, and she memorized their routines. These details were important. She thought of the stories of hunters and warriors in her village, and she tried to apply the same patience and observation to her situation. Every glance, every gesture, every sound became a clue, a piece of a puzzle she was determined to solve. As the journey continued, Nayeli reflected on the life she had left behind. She remembered the laughter of the children, the songs sung around the fire at night, the gentle hand of her mother guiding her. These memories were bittersweet, but they gave her motivation. She promised herself that she would survive, not just for her own sake, but to honor the life and people she had loved. She would carry their stories forward, no matter what challenges lay ahead. By the third day, the group reached a place that Nayeli did not recognize. The landscape changed subtly, with fewer familiar landmarks and more open plains. The strangers seemed confident here, moving with purpose, but Nayeli's mind was still alert. She noticed that some were less careful than others, that patterns emerged in their behavior that could be used later. Even in this difficult situation, she found ways to feel some control. During the nights, Nayeli would lie awake, listening to the wind and the distant sounds of the land. She tried to imagine what lay ahead and what strategies she could use to navigate the unknown. Though her body was weary, her spirit remained unbroken. Nayeli knew that survival was not only about strength, but also about patience, observation, and courage. She drew strength from the thought that she had endured before and could endure again. As the first part of her journey ended, Nayeli realized that her life had changed forever. The safety of her village was behind her, and the uncertainty of the road ahead was before her. Yet within her, a quiet determination had taken root. She was not a victim, she was a survivor, ready to face whatever the world might demand. And though fear lingered, it was now accompanied by hope, courage, and a resolve that would guide her through the trials yet to come. The sun had just begun to rise over the flat, open plains. The wind carried the scent of dry grass and dust, and the sky was painted in soft pink and orange hues. Nayeli and the other villagers, still weary from their journey, were brought to a small trading post set up by the strangers. Unlike the natural landscape of her village, this place felt strange and harsh, made of rough wooden buildings and dusty paths. The unfamiliar sounds of hammers, horses, and voices mixed together, creating a constant hum of activity that made Nayeli's heart pound. The trading post was crowded. People moved back and forth, some carrying goods, others speaking in a language Naeli only partially understood. The villagers were gathered together, placed near the center where everyone could see them. Naeli observed carefully, noticing how the strangers interacted with the villagers and each other. Her mind worked quickly, trying to understand the rules of this new place, the way power worked, and how she could navigate it without losing herself. Soon, an announcement echoed across the post. A man with a loud, commanding voice called the villagers forward, explaining that they were being offered for adoption or purchase to settlers and travelers. Naeli's heart sank, but she straightened her posture and walked forward with a calm face. She had learned that sometimes courage was quiet. She did not need to shout or fight to show strength. Her eyes met those of the strangers, steady and unafraid, and for a moment she felt a small sense of control in a situation that seemed completely out of her hands. The crowd around her whispered and nudged each other. Naeli noticed the mixture of curiosity, judgment, and greed in their faces. Some looked at her with interest, some with suspicion, and others with casual amusement. Naeli understood that how she presented herself might influence her future. She could not change what had happened, but she could choose how to face the moment. So she lifted her chin, kept her voice calm, and spoke words she had carefully prepared, words that showed strength, confidence, and intelligence. "Buy me if you wish," she said. "I will make sure I serve well and honor you." Her voice was steady, though her heart thumped. Naeli did not fully understand how the strangers would react, but she knew that showing fear would not help her. Speaking this way was a strategy, a way to protect herself by taking a difficult situation and giving it a sense of order and control. Among the crowd, one man's eyes lingered on her longer than the others. He was tall, with a rugged face and calloused hands, and he seemed different from the others. He looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and respect, not the usual sense of ownership or superiority the other strangers displayed. Naeli could sense that he was not cruel or harsh, though he clearly came from a world very different from her own. She kept her gaze steady, trying to read him as carefully as he seemed to be reading her. The man stepped forward. He spoke softly to the auctioneer, and the auction began. Naeli observed everything, the way people raised their hands, the way they looked at each other, the way the man considered her carefully before responding. She realized that this moment was not only about what would happen next, but also about how she carried herself. Every movement, every glance, every word mattered. When it was her turn, the man approached and spoke directly to her. His voice was low, and there was a calmness in it that surprised Naeli. He asked her about herself, about her skills and knowledge, and listened intently as she answered. Naeli explained what she knew about the land, the ways of her people, and the skills she could offer. She did not boast, but she did not hide her abilities either. She wanted to be seen as someone capable and resilient, someone who could survive and contribute, not someone to be pitied or controlled. The man nodded thoughtfully. Naeli could feel the tension in the air as the auction continued, but she also sensed a small glimmer of hope. Maybe this man could be different. Maybe he would treat her with the respect and fairness that seemed so rare in this harsh world. She did not allow herself to dream too far ahead, but she did let herself feel a small relief, a sense that not everything was entirely hopeless. As the auction ended, the man made his choice. He purchased Naeli, not with cruelty or arrogance, but with a quiet determination that surprised her. She realized that her life was about to change once again, but this time there might be room for negotiation, room to shape her own path within the constraints of her situation. She would need to learn, adapt, and observe, just as she had done so far. The journey from the trading post to the man's homestead was long. They traveled through plains, crossed shallow streams, and moved along narrow paths between rocky hills. Naeli noticed small details about the man during this journey, how he treated the animals, how he spoke to strangers, and even how he reacted to the natural world around him. She studied him carefully, understanding that knowledge of a person could be as important as knowledge of the land. Despite the discomfort and uncertainty, Naeli found moments of quiet reflection. She thought about her village, about the people she had left behind, and about the traditions and stories that had shaped her life. She realized that these memories were more than nostalgia, they were a source of strength. The lessons of her ancestors, the stories of bravery and cleverness, were tools she could carry with her. Even in an unfamiliar world, they gave her guidance and courage. During the evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of purple and gold, Naeli and the man set up small camps along the way. Naeli noticed that he was careful, not reckless, and that he respected certain boundaries even in this difficult journey. She began to understand that survival could sometimes come from forming alliances, finding people whose strength and values complemented her own. It was a subtle but important lesson. Trust, carefully given, could be a powerful tool. Along the way, Naeli also observed the reactions of others in their small traveling group. Some were envious, some suspicious, and some openly hostile. She learned quickly how to navigate these dynamics, how to speak softly when needed, how to step back when necessary, and how to use her words and actions to protect herself. Her mind, sharp and alert, became her greatest ally. The days passed slowly, but Naeli's resolve grew stronger. She realized that every step of the journey, every challenge, was shaping her into someone capable of surviving the unknown. Her courage was quiet but firm, rooted in careful observation, thought, and a willingness to adapt. She learned to see opportunity even in difficult circumstances, and to hold on to hope even when the world seemed harsh and unforgiving. By the time they approached the man's homestead, Naeli had gained a clearer understanding of her new environment. The homestead was modest but well kept, with fences, animals, and cultivated land. It was a world different from her village, but it was also a place where she could begin to navigate her life. She knew that her survival depended not just on physical strength, but also on patience, intelligence, and the careful building of relationships. As they entered the homestead, Naeli's heart was a mix of apprehension and determination. She had survived the journey so far, and she understood that this was only the beginning of a new chapter. She would need to adapt, learn, and use all her skills to navigate this world, but she felt a quiet confidence. She had faced uncertainty, fear, and discomfort before, and she had endured. Now she was ready to face what came next with the same courage and resilience that had carried her this far. That first night at the homestead, Naeli watched the stars from the porch. The world felt different here, stranger, yet full of possibility. She remembered the stories her grandmother had told her about the strength of the human spirit and the importance of hope. She repeated those stories quietly to herself, letting them remind her that she was not powerless. Even in a new and uncertain place, she could find ways to survive, to thrive, and to shape her own path. Naeli knew that the days ahead would not be easy. She would face challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of fear. But she also knew that she had within her a strength that no stranger could take away. Her courage, her intelligence, and her determination were hers alone, and they would guide her through whatever trials came next. She felt a quiet resolve settle over her, a promise to herself that she would not only survive but also grow stronger, wiser, and more capable with each passing day. And so, as the night deepened and the homestead settled into silence, Naeli allowed herself a small, quiet hope. She had survived the journey from her village to this new place, and she had faced it with courage. Whatever came next, she was ready to meet it, armed with her strength, her mind, and her spirit. The adventure of her new life was only beginning, and she would face it with the same careful, determined heart that had carried her this far. The morning sun spilled gently over the homestead, casting long, soft shadows across the dusty ground. Naeli woke to the sounds of chickens clucking, a distant dog barking, and the low creak of the wooden windmill turning slowly in the warm breeze. The air smelled of fresh hay, earth, and the faint aroma of bread baking in a small oven. It was a different world from her village, quiet and orderly, yet alive in its own way. Nayeli stretched her limbs and looked around, feeling both cautious and curious. The cowboy, whose name she had learned was Jeremiah, was already outside, tending to the horses. He moved with the ease of someone who had spent years working with animals and the land. Nayeli watched him for a moment, noticing how carefully he brushed the horse's coat, how gently he spoke, and how attentive he was to every movement. She realized that his strength was not only in his size or skill, but in his patience and attentiveness. It was something she could respect, something she could learn from. Jeremiah turned and noticed Nayeli standing in the doorway. He gave a small nod, acknowledging her presence. There was no harshness in his tone, only a quiet curiosity. "Good morning," he said simply. Nayeli replied with a soft, careful greeting, her voice steady. She was learning that this place, though unfamiliar, demanded observation and caution, but also offered the chance to find allies in unexpected people. As the morning went on, Nayeli began to explore the homestead. She moved carefully, taking note of the layout: the small barn where the animals stayed, the garden where vegetables grew, the stacks of firewood, and the tools neatly arranged against the walls. Every detail seemed important. Nayeli understood that learning about this place could help her survive and thrive. She also noticed how the workers and animals interacted with Jeremiah. There was a mutual respect, a quiet understanding of boundaries and care. Nayeli found it reassuring that respect could exist even in a world so different from her own. By mid-morning, Jeremiah had finished feeding the horses and began inspecting the crops. He looked up and noticed Nayeli following him at a distance. "You can help if you want," he said gently, handing her a small basket. Nayeli nodded, feeling a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. She had never worked with these kinds of crops before, but she understood the value of cooperation and effort. Slowly and carefully, she began to carry vegetables from the garden, learning the rhythm of the work, observing the techniques, and adapting her own movements. As they worked, a quiet rhythm settled over the homestead. Nayeli and Jeremiah moved with purpose, sometimes speaking, sometimes sharing silence. Nayeli noticed that he asked questions about her knowledge, not as a challenge but out of genuine interest. She shared what she knew about plants, water, and survival skills, and he listened, nodding thoughtfully. In return, he explained the tools, the planting techniques, and the routines of the homestead. Slowly, a bond began to form, built not on ownership or control but on mutual respect and the exchange of knowledge. In the afternoons, Nayeli began to explore other ways to contribute. She noticed the small repairs that needed attention around the homestead: the fences, the roof, the tools. With Jeremiah's guidance, she learned to handle hammers, nails, and rope. Her hands grew skilled and steady, and she felt a growing confidence in her ability to adapt. Each small success, each task completed, reminded her that she could shape her environment and influence her life, even in this new and unfamiliar world. One day, while tending to the animals, Nayeli asked Jeremiah about the stories of the land. She wanted to understand not only the practical aspects of living here, but also the history and traditions that shaped it. Jeremiah smiled and shared stories of previous settlers, the challenges they faced, and the lessons they had learned. Nayeli listened intently, appreciating the way storytelling connected people to their surroundings and to each other. She realized that stories, whether from her village or this homestead, carried wisdom and guidance for those willing to listen. As days passed, Nayeli noticed more subtle details about Jeremiah's character. He was fair but firm, patient but not passive. He respected boundaries, but he also expected effort and honesty. Nayeli found herself learning from his example, understanding that strength could be gentle, that leadership could be nurturing, and that trust could grow slowly through consistent actions. She began to see the possibilities for her own life here, not as a captive, but as someone who could navigate this world intelligently and courageously. Despite the growing comfort, Nayeli remained vigilant. She had learned from her journey that the world was unpredictable and that survival required constant awareness. She observed the visitors who came to the homestead, the workers, and even the local wildlife. She noted patterns, habits, and small cues, storing them in her mind. Nayeli understood that knowledge was power, and the more she understood about this new world, the better she could navigate it. In the evenings after the work was done, Nayeli and Jeremiah often sat together on the porch, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The sky transformed into brilliant oranges, purples, and blues, and the air carried the soft chill of approaching night. They would speak quietly, sharing thoughts about the day, their experiences, and their dreams. Nayeli began to realize that their relationship was not one of ownership, but of respect, learning, and mutual understanding. This realization gave her a sense of security and hope she had not felt since leaving her village. One evening, as the stars began to appear, Nayeli shared stories from her own village. She spoke of her childhood, the festivals, the songs, and the lessons from her elders. Jeremiah listened carefully, asking questions and showing genuine interest. Nayeli noticed how comforting it was to share her memories and see them valued. In return, Jeremiah shared his own experiences growing up on the plains, learning to care for animals, and surviving harsh conditions. Through these exchanges, they both began to see each other not as master and servant, but as individuals capable of learning from and supporting one another. Nayeli also began to teach Jeremiah small skills from her culture. She showed him how to identify plants, track animals, and recognize signs in the environment that others might overlook. Jeremiah listened and tried to follow her instructions, sometimes stumbling but always eager to learn. Nayeli felt a quiet satisfaction in this exchange. She realized that her knowledge had value, and sharing it built a bond of trust and respect. One afternoon, a small challenge arose. A young animal had wandered away from the pen, and Nayeli quickly noticed it. Using her instincts and calm reasoning, she guided it back safely, showing both skill and courage. Jeremiah observed, impressed not only by her ability to act quickly but also by her calmness under pressure. It was a small incident, but it highlighted the growing respect between them and Nayeli's increasing confidence in her new life. As weeks turned into months, Nayeli settled into a daily rhythm. She woke with the sun, worked through the day, and rested under the stars at night. Each day brought small lessons, quiet victories, and growing understanding. She began to see that life, even in unexpected circumstances, could offer opportunities to learn, grow, and find meaning. Nayeli's courage, patience, and intelligence became her most valuable tools, guiding her through challenges and helping her adapt to the new world around her. Despite the calm and routine, Nayeli never forgot the world outside the homestead. She remained aware that life could change unexpectedly and that vigilance was necessary. She continued to observe patterns, anticipate potential problems, and think several steps ahead. Her mind stayed sharp, and her heart remained courageous. Nayeli had learned that true strength was not just physical but also mental and emotional, and she was determined to cultivate it fully. One quiet evening, as a gentle wind rustled the leaves, Nayeli reflected on her journey so far. She had traveled from her village, faced uncertainty, and adapted to a completely new life. She had learned to trust selectively, to observe carefully, and to act with courage. She realized that her experiences, though challenging, had strengthened her, shaping her into someone resilient, wise, and capable. Nayeli also felt a growing sense of hope. She began to imagine possibilities for the future, not as a captive, but as someone who could shape her life, build relationships, and navigate the world with intelligence and courage. She understood that every day offered new lessons and that every challenge was an opportunity to grow. With patience, effort, and careful observation, Nayeli knew she could face whatever came next. As the stars blanketed the sky and the homestead settled into silence, Nayeli felt a quiet peace. She had found a place where her skills and knowledge mattered, where respect and understanding could exist, and where she could continue to learn and grow. Though the world outside remained unpredictable, she was ready to meet it with courage, intelligence, and a steady heart. And so, as the night deepened, Nayeli allowed herself a small, quiet smile. She had come far from the village of her childhood, survived challenges she could never have imagined, and discovered strength within herself that she had not known before. The journey was far from over, but she felt ready. With careful observation, courage, and a willingness to learn, Nayeli was prepared to face the days ahead, and to shape her life with wisdom, patience, and hope. The days at the homestead had grown into a steady rhythm, and Nayeli had begun to feel more comfortable in her surroundings. The sun rose and set in predictable patterns, the animals were tended with care, and the fields flourished under diligent work. Yet, comfort did not mean she had lost her vigilance. Nayeli remained alert, observing every movement of the homestead, every sound of the land, and every subtle change in the behavior of those around her. She had learned that life was unpredictable, and the best way to thrive was to combine skill with awareness. By this time, Nayeli and Jeremiah had developed a quiet understanding. There was no need for constant conversation. Sometimes, the shared work and silent cooperation were enough to strengthen their bond. They respected each other's skills and trusted each other's instincts. Nayeli had taught Jeremiah some of her knowledge about the land, how to find water hidden beneath dry soil, how to recognize plants that could be used for food or medicine, and how to read subtle signs in the environment. In return, Jeremiah had guided her in the practical ways of the homestead, fencing, planting crops, caring for animals, and using tools that were new to her. Nayeli found herself thinking differently about her place in this new world. She realized that even though she had been taken from her village, she was no longer entirely powerless. Here, her skills mattered. Her intelligence, patience, and courage could make a real difference. She began to take initiative, finding ways to improve the homestead's efficiency and comfort. She suggested planting certain crops that grew well in the soil, rearranging the garden to make it easier to water, and creating a small system for feeding the animals that saved both time and energy. Jeremiah listened carefully to her suggestions and implemented them when he agreed. Nayeli felt a quiet satisfaction in seeing her ideas put into practice. It reminded her that even in unfamiliar circumstances, she could have influence and contribute meaningfully. It was not just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving and shaping her environment with intelligence and care. One afternoon, Nayeli noticed a young horse that seemed restless and anxious. She observed its behavior, remembering lessons from her childhood about animal behavior, patience, and gentle guidance. Slowly, she approached the horse, speaking softly and moving with calm, steady gestures. The horse gradually settled, allowing her to lead it to a small pen and care for it properly. Jeremiah watched from a distance, impressed not only by her skill but by the quiet confidence she exhibited. These small successes, repeated day after day, gave Nayeli a growing sense of capability and pride. As she grew more confident, Nayeli also began to interact more with the local community. Other settlers and neighbors sometimes came to the homestead, bringing news, supplies, or seeking advice. Nayeli observed their manners, listened to their stories, and learned from their experiences. She discovered that people valued practical knowledge and clear thinking, and she realized that her abilities could earn her respect in this new society. She began to help with small tasks for the neighbors, offering advice on planting, water management, or care for animals. Slowly, she became known as someone knowledgeable, reliable, and thoughtful. Jeremiah noticed the way Nayeli's confidence grew and often expressed quiet approval. He would nod at her when she successfully solved a problem or praise her carefully when she suggested an improvement. Nayeli appreciated this acknowledgement, but she did not rely solely on his approval. She had learned that her strength came from her own mind and determination. The trust and respect between them were mutual, and it grew steadily, grounded in shared effort and understanding rather than obligation or ownership. One evening, as the sun set in shades of gold and rose, Nayeli and Jeremiah sat near the fire outside the main house. The work of the day was done, and the animals were safely cared for. Nayeli reflected on how far she had come since her arrival. She remembered the fear and uncertainty she had felt during the journey from her village, the tension of the auction, and the cautious steps of her early days at the homestead. Now, she felt a quiet confidence and a sense of purpose. She was no longer simply surviving. She was living, learning, and contributing. During this reflective moment, Nayeli also considered the lessons of her past. She remembered the stories her grandmother had told about resilience, wisdom, and courage. These stories had guided her then and continued to guide her now. She realized that her experiences, though challenging, had strengthened her. She had learned that patience, observation, and calm thinking could overcome fear and uncertainty. She had also learned the value of partnership and trust, and how working with others could create a safer and more productive life. Nayeli's role in the homestead continued to grow. She began organizing small tasks for efficiency, helping Jeremiah plan the day's work, and teaching the younger helpers new skills. Her presence became a stabilizing influence. People around her noticed her ability to remain calm under pressure, her resourcefulness, and her willingness to help. Nayeli felt proud, not from personal recognition, but from seeing that her actions had a positive impact. She had become an integral part of the homestead's life. One day, a challenge arose when a heavy storm approached unexpectedly. Dark clouds rolled in from the west, and the wind picked up, rustling the trees and sending small debris across the yard. Nayeli observed the storm carefully, noticing the direction of the wind, the speed of the clouds, and the patterns of the animals' behavior. She quickly coordinated with Jeremiah to secure the animals, protect the crops, and safeguard supplies. The storm passed without major damage, and both Nayeli and Jeremiah recognized the value of careful observation and calm action. Nayeli's ability to anticipate the storm had made a real difference, and it reinforced her sense of confidence in her skills. The seasons changed, bringing new tasks and challenges. Nayeli adapted to each with resilience and intelligence. She learned when to plant certain crops, how to preserve food for winter, and how to maintain the homestead structures. She also learned to care for her own well-being, finding quiet moments to rest, reflect, and connect with the land in meaningful ways. Nayeli discovered that survival and growth required balance. Work, observation, and rest all played a part in living well. Over time, Nayeli and Jeremiah's partnership grew stronger. They had developed a mutual respect and understanding that allowed them to work seamlessly together. They shared responsibilities, supported each other's decisions, and learned from one another. Nayeli realized that relationships built on respect and shared goals could be as important as any practical skill. She had once feared human cruelty and dominance, but now she was discovering the possibility of cooperation, care, and trust. Nayeli also found opportunities to teach others. She guided the younger helpers in the homestead, showing them the importance of patience, careful observation, and practical problem-solving. She encouraged them to think critically and creatively, helping them learn to face challenges with confidence. Nayeli's influence began to extend beyond herself, touching the lives of those around her and creating a supportive environment where knowledge and skill were valued. As the months passed, Nayeli reflected on her journey. She had come from a life of uncertainty and fear, through a difficult transition, and had learned to thrive in a new environment. She had developed skills, built relationships, and gained confidence in herself. She realized that life was not simply about surviving hardship. It was about learning, adapting, and growing stronger with every experience. Nayeli felt a quiet pride in her achievements, not from vanity, but from understanding the value of her own resilience and intelligence. By the end of the year, the homestead had transformed in small but meaningful ways under Nayeli's influence. The garden was thriving, the animals were well cared for, and the daily routines ran smoothly. Nayeli had become not only a contributor but also a leader in practical and thoughtful ways. Her courage, patience, and intelligence had shaped the life of the homestead, and she had discovered the power of knowledge, careful observation, and cooperation. One evening, under a sky full of stars, Nayeli thought about the future. She realized that while her journey had been difficult, it had also revealed her inner strength. She had learned to trust herself, to observe carefully, and to act wisely. She had also discovered the value of partnership, respect, and shared effort. Nayeli understood that life would continue to present challenges, but she now had the skills, confidence, and insight to face them with courage. As she lay down that night, listening to the gentle sounds of the animals and the wind through the trees, Nayeli allowed herself a sense of quiet accomplishment. She had survived, adapted, and grown. She had transformed uncertainty into opportunity, fear into courage, and isolation into partnership. Nayeli felt a deep gratitude for her journey and for the lessons it had taught her. She had discovered her own resilience and the importance of using knowledge, patience, and careful observation to navigate life successfully. And so, as the homestead settled into a peaceful night, Nayeli felt ready for whatever came next. She had faced challenges, learned from them, and emerged stronger and wiser. Her journey was far from over, but she had proven to herself that she was capable, resourceful, and courageous. With her mind sharp, her heart steady, and her spirit resilient, Nayeli was prepared to continue shaping her life, building relationships, and thriving in a world that was once unfamiliar but had now become a place where she could grow and flourish. The morning air carried a fresh, cool breeze across the homestead, and the first rays of sunlight sparkled on the fields. Nayeli awoke with a sense of quiet determination. Over the past months, she had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident. Life on the homestead had taught her patience, resilience, and the importance of observation. She had learned not only to survive but also to thrive, shaping her environment with intelligence, care, and effort. Now, as the seasons shifted, she began to think about the future and the possibilities that awaited her beyond the homestead. The bond between Nayeli and Jeremiah had grown steadily over time. They had learned to work together seamlessly, respecting each other's skills and boundaries. Jeremiah had come to rely on Nayeli's insight, not only for the practical management of the homestead, but also for understanding the land and its rhythms. Nayeli, in turn, had learned to trust him and his judgment. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and understanding, rather than authority or ownership. It was a partnership, one that had grown naturally through shared experiences and consistent care. One afternoon, while tending to the garden, Nayeli noticed a group of travelers approaching the homestead. They were carrying supplies and asked for water and a place to rest. Nayeli welcomed them, using the opportunity to observe their behavior and learn more about the surrounding community. She asked questions about their travels, listened carefully to their stories, and offered advice when appropriate. She realized that her experiences and knowledge were valuable not only to Jeremiah and the homestead, but also to the wider community. Her confidence grew as she understood that her voice mattered. During their visit, Nayeli shared practical skills she had learned from her culture, teaching the travelers how to identify edible plants, conserve water, and observe the land for signs of weather changes. They listened attentively, impressed by her knowledge and calm guidance. Nayeli felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had taken lessons from her past, her village, and her journey to this new life, and now she could use them to help others. It was a reminder that her experiences had purpose and meaning beyond survival. As the day progressed, Nayeli reflected on her journey. She had been taken from her village, faced fear and uncertainty, and arrived at a place completely unfamiliar. She had faced challenges, observed carefully, and learned to adapt. Through each trial, she had discovered her own strength, patience, and resilience. Now, she could see clearly that her journey was not just about enduring hardship. It was about learning, growing, and creating opportunities where others might see only obstacles. Nayeli's confidence continued to flourish as she explored more ways to contribute to the homestead and community. She began organizing small projects, like repairing tools, planning crop rotations, and setting up storage systems for harvested food. She noticed that small improvements made life easier and more efficient for everyone. Her skills, once unrecognized, were now appreciated, and she felt a sense of accomplishment in seeing her suggestions implemented. The respect she earned was quiet but meaningful, strengthening her sense of belonging and purpose. Jeremiah observed these developments with quiet pride. He recognized Nayeli's intelligence, foresight, and ability to act decisively when needed. He also noticed how she encouraged others, teaching them skills and guiding them without condescension. Jeremiah admired her ability to balance assertiveness with patience, leadership with cooperation. Nayeli had transformed not only her own life, but also the environment around her, creating a harmonious and productive homestead. One morning, as Nayeli checked the fences along the perimeter of the property, she noticed subtle signs of change in the land. A small patch of soil that could be cultivated, a cluster of plants that could be useful, and tracks of animals that could indicate resources nearby. She carefully documented her observations in a small notebook, making plans for future improvements. Nayeli understood that paying attention to small details could yield significant benefits over time. Her patience and careful study of the land allowed her to anticipate needs, prevent problems, and plan for growth. As the months passed, Nayeli also began to consider her personal goals. She reflected on the life she had left behind, the village she had grown up in, and the dreams she had once held. While she valued her experiences at the homestead, she realized that her journey was far from over. She wanted to explore more of the world, to learn new skills, and to continue shaping her own destiny. Nayeli understood that independence and freedom were not only physical but also mental and emotional. She had the strength, courage, and intelligence to pursue them. One afternoon, Nayeli shared her thoughts with Jeremiah. She spoke of her desire to learn more about the wider region, to meet people from other communities, and to expand her understanding of the world. Jeremiah listened carefully, showing both support and concern. He admired her ambition and determination, but also wanted to ensure she would be safe. They discussed plans carefully, weighing risks and opportunities, and agreed that preparation, patience, and strategy were essential for her next steps. In the weeks that followed, Nayeli prepared diligently. She learned additional skills from Jeremiah and neighboring settlers, practiced traveling safely across the land, and studied the seasons and weather patterns. She also strengthened her mental and emotional resilience, reflecting on her experiences and the lessons she had learned. Nayeli understood that true freedom required preparation and foresight, and she approached each day with focus and determination. During this period, Nayeli also deepened her relationships within the homestead and community. She became a mentor for younger helpers, teaching them not only practical skills, but also the importance of observation, patience, and problem-solving. Her guidance was valued and respected, and she saw firsthand how sharing knowledge could empower others. Nayeli felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that her growth had created a ripple effect, benefiting those around her. As the time approached for her to explore beyond the homestead, Nayeli felt a mixture of excitement and calm determination. She packed necessary supplies, carefully considering what she might need for safety, sustenance, and learning. She revisited the homestead's routines, ensuring that her absence would not disrupt the daily work. Nayeli's careful planning reflected her growth from someone who had once faced uncertainty and fear into someone capable of strategic thinking and foresight. Finally, the day arrived for Nayeli to set out on her new journey. The sun was high in the sky, casting warm light over the homestead. Jeremiah accompanied her to the edge of the property, where she paused to take in the view of the land that had become her home. She felt gratitude for the experiences she had gained, the skills she had learned, and the people who had supported her along the way. Naomi also felt excitement for the adventures and knowledge that awaited her beyond the familiar fields. Before departing, Naomi and Jeremiah shared a quiet moment of understanding. They had built a bond of respect, trust, and shared effort, one that would continue even as she ventured into new territory. Jeremiah encouraged her to trust her instincts, to observe carefully, and to remain patient and courageous. Naomi nodded, knowing that the lessons she had learned at the homestead would guide her well in the days to come. As she walked toward the horizon, Naomi reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She remembered her village, the challenges she had faced, the auction, the travel to the homestead, and the months of learning and growth. Each step had been part of a larger path, one that had shaped her into someone strong, wise, and capable. Naomi understood that life would continue to present challenges, but she now had the confidence, skills, and resilience to face them successfully. On her journey beyond the homestead, Naomi encountered new landscapes, communities, and experiences. She traveled with careful observation, learning from each person she met, each challenge she faced, and each environment she encountered. She applied the lessons of patience, courage, and intelligence that had guided her from her village to the homestead. Slowly, she built a life shaped by her own choices, her knowledge, and her resilience. Throughout her travels, Naomi also shared her knowledge and experiences. She taught practical skills, guided communities in observing and understanding their environment, and encouraged others to approach challenges with patience and careful thought. Her influence spread quietly, through example and guidance, showing the value of intelligence, courage, and collaboration. Naomi realized that her journey was not only about personal growth, but also about making a positive difference in the lives of others. As time passed, Naomi became known as someone wise, capable, and thoughtful. She had transformed challenges into opportunities, uncertainty into learning, and fear into courage. Her journey was a testament to the power of observation, patience, and resilience. Naomi's life had changed in ways she could never have imagined as a young woman in her village. She had faced the unknown, adapted, and grown stronger, shaping her own path with careful thought and determination. In the evenings, under a sky full of stars, Naomi often reflected on her journey. She remembered the lessons of her village, the challenges she had faced, the guidance of Jeremiah, and the skills she had learned along the way. She felt gratitude for the experiences that had shaped her and for the opportunity to continue learning, growing, and contributing to the world. Naomi understood that life was a journey of continuous growth and that each experience, whether easy or challenging, carried lessons and opportunities. As her story continued beyond the homestead, Naomi remained guided by courage, intelligence, and careful observation. She embraced each new day with determination and hope, knowing that her choices, skills, and resilience would shape the path ahead. Her journey was far from over, but she faced it with confidence, wisdom, and a quiet strength that had been built through every challenge she had overcome. And so, Naomi's journey continued, one of learning, growth, and discovery. She had transformed uncertainty into opportunity, fear into courage, and challenge into wisdom. Through patience, observation, and resilience, she had carved a life of independence, respect, and meaningful contribution. Naomi had not only survived but had thrived, creating a legacy of strength, intelligence, and hope that would continue to guide her and inspire others for years to come.